Dear dancers, this is something very specific for you today, because I see it so often in the practice that I thought I want to explain a little bit and possibly help you to prevent or deal with that problem. And the problem is the first toe. It seems a very little problem, but it can become a huge one if you don't treat it well, if you don't manage it well. And the problem is that certain pattern of tension develops in a kinetic chain that starts at your big toe, followed by ankle, outer side of your knee, your hip, your back, lower back, and goes up towards the skull, towards your head. If the tension is there, it is very distinct, and you can really feel it by palpation. Such pattern usually pre-exists. It's already there, and it usually functions perfectly until something happens in this myofascial chain. Usually this pattern shows up when something changes in your daily routine, when you start jumping more, when you start running a lot, when a change in the hardness of the floor happens. So when you go from the rehearsal studio to the stage. So let's start. Extreme forces are managed by the toes when you start running or jumping. So during the push-off. It is important to realize that even in standing, your toes are working, and especially the first one, because it gives you a static balance. In ballet or in contemporary dance, you use it a lot because you land pointing your toes and going through them, and then you push off for the jump also by using the toes a lot. As we want to see what happens further with this first toe line and the flexors of the toes, we need to see, with the help of my friend Ciao Osteo, where it actually tenses and this pattern develops. And we will show you where you need to look at if you want to recognize this pattern. And so to illustrate this line, follow me. These are your deep toe flexors, attaching to the ends of your toes. They are going through your ankle, through your lower leg, and attaches to the membrane between the fibula and tibia. It also affects, of course, the peroneal musculature, then upper leg through the biceps femoris, hamstring, through all the external rotators of your hip. So this is now in the external rotation. It goes through it, and then it continues as a thoracolumbar fascia through the paraspinal musculature upwards towards your neck. First toe pattern, as they call it, comes not as a first toe problem, usually, but as a knee problem, as a hip problem, lower back, or something with the neck. So how do you notice when something is wrong? Once you go to sleep, you are in bed, all relaxed. Note, how are your feet? If one is turning more inwards than the other, it means for sure that it has something to do with your first toe or your deep toe flexors. If your both feet in the relaxed situation are exactly the same or similar, I'm not worried. So what happens is, during running, push-off motion and landing, point and flex. This means this motion involves movement of your fibular bone, up and down, forward, backwards. It affects your knee. The rotation of the tibia and fibula, and mainly tibia, is affecting your knee and your ankle joint. The rotation of your upper leg bone often results, if there is a lot of tension in your gluteal musculature, tensor fasciae latae, this line goes towards the tibia, inserts in the Gerdy's tubercle, and this means that all your upper leg and lower leg rotated externally. This affects your foot, as the foot is forced to go to the supination motion. This supination motion affects a lot the toe flexors, deep toe flexors, and this line becomes chronically contracted. then it goes upwards as your hamstring. So it affects, of course, your pelvis. The hamstrings are attaching to the pelvic tuberosity. So it means that it starts pulling the joints, the pelvic joints, pubic symphysis, and the two pelvic joints. It further goes into the all external rotators of the hip, which are inserting into the thoracolumbar fascia and goes further on as paraspinal musculature up towards your neck. Due to the tension in this pattern, I often find problems in the articulations of the foot joints. I might also find less mobility in the subtalar joint, in the talar joint, as they also become affected due to the tension that develops in this line. It might be that the dancer had a twist, ankle twist injury. I find that, for example, the articulation between the calcaneocuboid joint is not optimal. Or I find that the ankle joint is not moving properly. And if something is restricting this motion, plantar flexion or inversion, it can be that tibiofibular joints are not moving properly. So sometimes dancers complain of their pain in the knee. Some of you come with a neck pain, or the pain between your shoulder blades, or the pain along the rib cage, or along the lower spine. Many times I find a lot of tension in the thoracolumbar junction, which is also a continuation of this line. Then I find a lot of tension in the gluteals, in the deep external rotators of the hip. Then I find a lot of tension in the iliotibial tract, which inserts into the Verdi's tubercle, and that means that all your lower leg is rotated outwards, externally. Sometimes dancers come to me with a hip pain, or something in the gluteal region, something in the sacrum area, in the lower back. And there, of course, because of the rotations in the hip that are required by ballet dancers' technique, it is often so that the hip joint is already chronically in external rotation. Tensor fasciae latae and gluteus maximus extremely tensed or full of trigger points. This line goes towards the tibia, inserts in the Verdi's tubercle, and this means that all your upper leg and lower leg rotated externally. This affects your foot, as the foot is forced to go to the supination motion. The supination motion affects a lot the toe flexors, deep toe flexors. So this is a message from me and my friend here. Take care of your first toe. See the pattern. Note the pattern. Check your first toe mobility. Check the tension in this line. I hope this was a clear explanation on how to recognize this pattern and a little bit how to deal with it. You can find on our previous videos on the profile. And of course, if you have any questions or suggestions or requests or something was not clear, please let us know in the comments. And that's it for today. Ciao, ciao!